In 2023, the global lawn care market reached a staggering $131 billion. To maintain this industry, homeowners in the United States alone poured roughly 90 million pounds of toxic synthetic herbicides onto their properties. They paid for the chemicals. They paid for the sprayers. They paid for the protective gloves required to handle the poisons they were willfully dispersing exactly where their children and pets play. They did all of this to eradicate a threat that does not actually exist. The modern suburban lawn is not a natural ecosystem. It is an ecological dead zone, meticulously engineered and mandated by chemical conglomerates. And the concept of the weed, the invasive, undesirable enemy that must be destroyed at all costs, is perhaps the most successful psychological operation in the history of modern commerce. A weed is not a biological category. The word has no scientific meaning. In the realm of botany, there is no such thing as a weed. There are only plants. The classification of a plant as a weed is entirely an economic construct created by the very industries that sell the chemicals required to kill it. What you have been conditioned to view as an unsightly infestation ruining the aesthetic of your manicured grass is, in reality, a collection of some of the most nutrient-dense, medically potent, and ecologically vital plants on the face of the earth. You have been sold a manufactured reality. You have been convinced to poison your own medicine cabinet. To understand the magnitude of this deception, we must look at the historical record, long before the invention of the patentable chemical herbicide. In the year 1620, when the Pilgrims loaded the Mayflower to make the perilous journey across the Atlantic, cargo space was measured in inches. Only the absolute essentials for human survival were permitted on board. Among the tools, the gunpowder, and the foundational crops, they deliberately packed the seeds of a specific plant. They did not bring it by accident. They brought it because it was considered an indispensable pharmaceutical, an essential tool for survival in a hostile new world. That plant was Taraxacum officinale. You know it as the dandelion. For thousands of years, the dandelion was revered as a biological miracle. The genus name, Taraxacum, is derived from ancient Arabic and Persian pharmaceutical records dating back to the year 900, meaning the bitter herb that heals. In traditional Chinese medicine, recorded during the Han Dynasty, it was prescribed for liver disease and severe infections. European apothecaries in the 15th century considered it a universal panacea. The dandelion was royalty. It was cultivated in the private gardens of kings and emperors. It was a primary source of early spring sustenance, breaking the winter famine with an explosion of vital nutrients. This reverence was not based on folklore. It was based on hard, undeniable biology. The nutritional profile of the dandelion puts modern, store-bought produce to shame. A single cup of dandelion greens contains 112% of your daily required vitamin A and over 500% of your vitamin K. It possesses more vitamin C than a tomato and more iron and calcium than cultivated spinach. Its roots contain high levels of inulin, a prebiotic fiber that actively restores the human gut microbiome. It is a complete, free, and hyperabundant superfood. Yet, today, if this ancient life-saving plant dares to show its yellow head in a modern suburban yard, the homeowner is conditioned to feel a sense of deep shame. They immediately rush to the hardware store to purchase a plastic jug of neurological toxins to murder it. The dandelion is not the only victim of this systemic botanical erasure. Consider Plantago major, commonly known as broadleaf plantain. Today, it is despised as a stubborn nuisance that chokes out turf grass. But for centuries, the Native American peoples referred to it as white man's footprint, as it thrived in the compacted, damaged soil left behind by European settlers. The settlers themselves brought it intentionally. Alexander the Great's armies used it to treat battlefield wounds in 320 BC. The Roman legions carried it across Europe. Modern clinical science has entirely vindicated the Romans. Plantain leaves contain allantoin, a powerful phytochemical that actively promotes cellular regeneration and tissue repair. It possesses natural antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties. If you are stung by a bee, bitten by a spider, or slashed by a bramble, simply chewing a plantain leaf and pressing it against the wound will draw out the venom and immediately halt the pain. It is a highly effective, naturally occurring first aid kit, growing silently in the cracks of your driveway. We destroy it with weed whackers and douse it in glyphosate. Then there is the case of Portulaca oleracea, or purslane. It creeps along the edges of gardens and thrives in the harshest, driest conditions. Most gardeners pull it and throw it in the municipal compost bin without a second thought. If they understood human biology, they would be eating it by the handful. Purslane contains the highest concentration of heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids of any leafy land plant on Earth. It is packed with melatonin, magnesium, and potassium. In a society plagued by heart disease and chronic inflammation, where consumers spend billions of dollars annually on synthetic fish oil capsules that frequently go rancid on supermarket shelves, the cure is growing freely in the dirt. Why do we not know this? How did an entire civilization forget the essential nature of the ground beneath its feet? The answer lies in the mid-20th century, inside the laboratories of the industrial chemical complex. The story of the modern lawn is fundamentally the story of post-World War II chemical warfare. During the 1940s, military researchers and agricultural chemists were tasked with developing synthetic auxins, artificial plant hormones designed to disrupt the growth patterns of enemy crops. In 1941, a researcher synthesized a compound known as 2,4-dichlorophenoxyacetic acid, or 2,4-D. 2,4-D is not a poison in the traditional sense. It is a weaponized hormone. When applied to a broadleaf plant, it forces the plant's cells to divide and grow at an uncontrollable, explosive rate. The plant literally grows itself to death, twisting and contorting until its vascular system collapses. It is a grotesque microscopic execution. When the Second World War ended, the chemical conglomerates that had ramped up production for the war effort found themselves with massive manufacturing capabilities, millions of gallons of product, and no enemy to fight. They needed a new market. They needed a new enemy. They turned their crosshairs on the American yard. Prior to the 1950s, the concept of a pristine, uniform grass-only lawn did not exist for the middle class. A healthy lawn was a polyculture, a diverse tapestry of grasses, chamomile, thyme, and most importantly, white clover. Up until 1950, white clover was actually a required component of all premium grass seed blends. Clover was recognized as essential because of a miraculous biological mechanism: nitrogen fixation. Clover roots house symbiotic rhizobium bacteria, which pull inert nitrogen straight from the atmosphere and convert it into a usable fertilizer in the soil. Clover literally fed the grass around it for free. A lawn with clover was perpetually green, drought-resistant, and required zero synthetic fertilization. But the chemical giants had a problem. Their new post-war miracle chemical, 2,4-D, was highly effective at killing broadleaf plants without harming narrow-leaf turf grasses. And clover, unfortunately, is a broadleaf plant. The chemical industry could not figure out how to reformulate 2,4-D to spare the clover, so they made a calculated multi-million-dollar decision. They didn't change the chemical, they changed reality. Beginning in the 1950s, a massive public relations and marketing campaign was launched to redefine the aesthetic of the American dream. The chemical lobby utilized television, magazines, and neighborhood associations to engineer a new standard of societal conformity. The ideal lawn was suddenly presented as a golf course-style monoculture, a sterile, unbroken carpet of a single species of grass. Anything that broke that uniform green plane was violently rebranded. Clover was no longer a premium fertilizer, it was a weed. The dandelion was no longer medicine, it was an infestation. Plantain was no longer a healer, it was a blight. The industry weaponized social pressure. Having a diverse, natural yard was framed as a sign of laziness, poverty, and disrespect for your neighbors. To be a good American, you had to eradicate the invaders. This marketing campaign birthed an insidious, highly profitable economic loop. By convincing the public to spray 2,4-D to kill the clover, the chemical companies successfully destroyed the lawn's natural ability to generate its own nitrogen. Once the clover was dead, the grass began to starve and turn brown. The solution: the very same chemical companies stepped in to sell the homeowner synthetic nitrogen fertilizers. Furthermore, plants like dandelions and plantain possess deep taproots, plunging feet into the earth. These roots act as nature's aerators, breaking up hard, compacted soil and drawing vital trace minerals like iron and calcium up to the surface layer. When the homeowner killed the dandelions, the soil became densely compacted. The roots of the turf grass remained shallow and weak, unable to survive the summer heat. The solution? The industry sold them massive, automated sprinkler systems and highly engineered topsoil. They invented artificial scarcity to sell you synthetic abundance. They intentionally broke the natural cycle of the ecosystem and then rented you the cure for the disease they created. Today, this $131 billion extortion racket operates out in the open. Walk through any modern suburban neighborhood in the spring. You will see the little yellow flags proudly planted at the edges of freshly sprayed properties. These flags carry a warning mandated by law, advising humans to keep their children and their dogs off the grass for up to 48 hours, because the neurotoxins and endocrine disruptors soaking into the soil are too dangerous to touch. We have accepted the poisoning of our immediate environment as a standard domestic chore. We irradiate our own living spaces to uphold an aesthetic standard invented by a corporation. The irony is as dark as it is profound. Inside the houses, past the warning flags and the chemically burned soil, the homeowners sit feeling fatigued, inflamed, and malnourished. They consume highly processed diets void of complex micronutrients. They suffer from digestive disorders, joint pain, and chronic stress. They spend billions annually on synthetic vitamins, artificial probiotics, and over-the-counter anti-inflammatories. They buy imported, plastic-wrapped superfoods from grocery stores at exorbitant markups. All the while, the true superfoods, the ancient medicines that evolved specifically to heal human bodies and repair damaged earth, are being systematically hunted to extinction just on the other side of the window pane. But the ultimate failure of the chemical empire lies in the sheer, unstoppable resilience of nature. You cannot permanently eradicate what the earth has mandated to survive. Consider the mechanics of the dandelion. A single flower produces hundreds of seeds, each attached to a microscopic parachute engineered with such aerodynamic perfection that a gentle breeze can carry it up to 5 miles. When the seed lands, it can remain dormant in the soil for up to 5 years, simply waiting for the conditions to be right. When the soil is dead, compacted, and heavily sprayed, when the synthetic turf grass fails, the dandelion senses the damage. It activates. It drives its taproot straight down through the chemical crust, shattering the compacted earth. It pulls nutrients from the subsoil, bringing life back to the surface. It feeds the early spring bees when no other flowers have bloomed. It is a biological first responder, arriving exactly where the earth has been wounded. This is why they break through the asphalt. This is why they rise from the cracks in the concrete. They are not invading your property. They are attempting to heal it. The multi-billion-dollar lie relies entirely on your continued ignorance. It requires you to look at a miraculous medicinal ecosystem and see only an enemy. It requires you to trade the free, infinite abundance of the natural world for a plastic jug of manufactured death. But the spell is easily broken. The moment you understand the history, the chemistry, and the biology, the illusion shatters. The manicured lawn ceases to look like a symbol of success and begins to look like exactly what it is: a toxic, sterile monument to corporate greed. The resistance begins with the simplest of actions: refusal. Refuse to participate in the chemical war. Let the clover return and fix the nitrogen. Let the dandelions break the hardpan and feed the pollinators. Learn to identify the plantain, the purslane, the burdock root, and the wild violet. Harvest them, eat them, bring the medicine back inside. The chemical conglomerates have spent 70 years and billions of dollars trying to erase this knowledge from the human consciousness. But the records remain, and the plants keep coming back. The truth is growing in your driveway. All you have to do is stop poisoning it and let it live.